So in my review of the Nespresso Grandlatissima, which if you haven't seen, you can click over here to watch it, I mentioned that a Nespresso machine is an excellent way to get close to an authentic espresso without the hassle or the needed barista skills to manually brew an espresso. Skills ranging from knowing how fine or coarse to grind your coffee beans to how much ground coffee to use, to the right amount of pressure when tamping, to the right amount of pressure when brewing, to the right brewing time, water temperature, etc, etc. And I called the Nespresso a magic machine that does all that with a press of a button. Truth be told, there's a little less magic going on with the Nespresso machine, and a little more super magic going on in what is called a super automatic coffee machine like the Melitta Barista T Smart that we are going to see today. But before we do that, what is a super automatic coffee machine? Well, it's called a super automatic for a reason, because it actually does all that with a press of a button. The grinding, the tamping, extracting the espresso shot, and some of them like the T Smart even has a built-in milk frother for milk beverages. So while the Nespresso simply pushes water at high pressure through a pre-packed and pre-ground pod, a super automatic machine actually automates everything a barista does. And as you know, coffee starts losing its aroma very fast once it's ground, while Nespresso takes certain measures in their manufacturing process to seal in the freshness. Needless to say, it's always better to freshly grind your beans only before brewing. So what are the advantages of a super automatic over a pod machine like the Nespresso? Well, there are many. A super automatic, which is also called a bean-to-cup machine, has one clear advantage in that name. You get coffee from beans to your cup right before you drink it. Using fresh coffee beans that are ground right before you brew your cup of coffee results in a fresher cup of coffee. As I said, coffee starts to lose its aroma quickly after it's ground and exposed to air, so the optimal point to grind your coffee is right before you brew it. And this is exactly what the super automatic machine does. On the other hand, with the pod machines like the Nespresso, the coffee is pre-ground and pre-packed into pods. Another advantage is that you have a much wider choice of coffee beans to use to suit your taste and budget as well. You're not bound to using the manufacturer's pods or third-party compatible capsules. Cost is another point, and this would depend on how much coffee you plan on drinking. Because the coffee pods are naturally more expensive than buying coffee beans, so the price per cup would be lower, but a super automatic coffee machine is quite expensive, several times more expensive than a pod machine. So your initial investment would be significantly higher, but eventually your price per cup would be lower. I'll let you do the math on how many cups of coffee you need to drink before you break even. Another advantage for a super automatic is control. A pod machine gives you very little to no control over your cup of coffee. Often the only control you can get is the amount of water you push through the pod, but the pod has a predefined amount of coffee in it, so adding more water is effectively diluting your cup of coffee. With super automatics, they generally give you the option to control a whole lot of things, like of course the amount of water, but also how many grams of coffee you want to use. So if you're adding more water, you can also add more coffee and not dilute your cup of coffee. You can also control the temperature. Some like the Barista T Smart also allows you to control the intensity of the cup of coffee without changing the amount of coffee used or increasing that amount. They pre-soak the ground beans in water before brewing or pass the water through the ground coffee slowly, and therefore end up extracting more flavors. Most machines also allow you to adjust the grinding level as well, giving you the option to select how fine or coarse you'd like your grind to be. So as you can see, if you're a coffee lover, there's a lot of advantages to owning a super automatic over an espresso. The only two disadvantages I see are, one of course, cost, where the super automatic could be several times more expensive than a pod machine, and the only other disadvantage I can think of, other than cost, is maintenance. While the pod machine will only need descaling from time to time, the super automatic does require a little bit more maintenance. In addition to descaling, you need to rinse the brewing unit, ideally once a week. It's not a lot of work, just a little bit more than a pod machine. And again, depending on your model, the cleaning cycles can also be automated. The T Smart, for example, has an automated cycle to clean the milk system and another cycle to rinse the coffee system. You still need to manually clean the brewing unit and from time to time disassemble the milk unit and clean that manually as well. Of course, if you want the most authentic cup of espresso, or if you have a passion for coffee, then you can get an automatic, semi-automatic, or go all in and get a manual espresso machine. But all these involve some degree of manual work and often have a steep learning curve, which brings us back to the advantage of a super automatic. It does all that with a one-touch operation, one-touch press of a button that requires, well, no knowledge, just your finger. So would it yield the best cup of espresso? Absolutely not. Is it better than a pod machine? Yes, for sure. And does it require any skills? Absolutely not. So if I was to sum this all up, your decision would probably be based on two factors: how much you love coffee and how much you're willing to invest. Not a coffee lover, but enjoy the occasional consistent cup of coffee? Get a pod machine like the Nespresso. Love coffee? Don't mind the money investment, but mind the time investment? Get a super automatic. Love coffee? Don't mind the money investment and don't mind the time investment? Then I'd say learn the art of coffee making and get yourself a manual, auto, or semi-auto coffee machine and become a seasoned barista. Only then would you get the most authentic cup of espresso. So now let's take a look at the Melitta T Smart. The smart part means it connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and using the Melitta app, you can select a drink or even customize one, which we'll see later on. On top, you have a 2-chamber bean container with manual select, which is a nice addition. You can have 2 different kinds of coffee beans at the same time, like a dark roast in one chamber and a light roast in another chamber at the same time. Though keep in mind that if you grind from chamber 1, for example, and then right afterwards use chamber 2, there will be residues from the beans in chamber 1, at least in that first cup. So if, for example, you're using decaf in the second chamber, you might still get some caffeine in that first brewed cup. You also have a ground coffee chute, so if you want to use ground coffee as well, you can do that too. On the side, you have a 1.8 liter water tank, which is also compatible with filters, so you can install a filter, so the machine would require less descaling or would require descaling less frequently, and it will also enhance the taste of the coffee. The outlet is adjustable, so you can lower it when you prepare an espresso, so you don't break the crema, or lift it up for larger cups and milk beverages. And then you get the milk hose, which you can connect to either side, left or right, depending on what your space allows, which is also nice. And then you connect the hose to either the milk container, or you can purchase this nice metallic straw that lets you use any cardboard milk container right from the box. On the face of the machine, there's a color TFT display, which is quite helpful as it clearly tells you what the machine is doing, being what kind of drink the machine is preparing, what quantity of water is being used, or where it's especially helpful when it comes to the maintenance of the machine. It gives you step-by-step instructions, but also tells you when it's time to clean or descale the machine, empty the drip tray, or refill the water tank. On the face of the machine, you have 4 default one-touch buttons, which are espresso, café crème, cappuccino, and latte macchiato. You also have a button for milk froth or hot milk and hot water. All these can be customized, whether in the app or through the menu here as well. Note that the machine comes with 18 different beverages, which you can select from the app or the machine itself. Now here, one thing I don't really get is that you cannot actually see the list of beverages through the machine menu. You can select any of the 18 beverages, but for that you need to press the My Recipes button and then refer to a card that came with the machine, which shows you which combination to press for which beverage. I made my own version of the card and laminated it as well and keep it next to the machine as a reference. For example, if you press the My Recipes button 3 times, and then the cappuccino button, you get a café au lait, which is café crème and warm milk with no froth. I really don't know why you cannot see the list of beverages from the menu like you can on the TS Smart, which is a very similar machine with a few extra options. It really doesn't make any sense to me, but it is what it is. But of course, you can also easily select a beverage from the app and even customize your own beverage. And we'll take a look at the app in just a bit. Another feature I like is the touch and slide, which lets you simply, well, touch and slide to control how much water you want or how strong the coffee is. You can do that before you prepare the beverage, but also in real time as the machine is preparing it. And I really like the fact that it shows you the quantity of water in milliliters. Next, you have the double cup button, which allows you to prepare 2 beverages simultaneously. The nice thing about this machine, which isn't found in all machines, is that it allows you to prepare 2 milk-based beverages as well at the same time. Worth noting though that the way it prepares 2 beverages is by brewing 2 half cups of coffee, because there's only so much beans it can grind in one go. So if you're brewing 2 espressos, for example, it's gonna fill both glasses with a half shot of espresso, then run another grind and fill both glasses with another half shot. That way you're still getting 2 cups of somewhat still hot coffee. The menu button lets you configure settings, change defaults, or select beverages. Through here is where you also do the maintenance, which, as I said, gives you step-by-step instructions on the color TFT screen, which is nice. And after each milk beverage you prepare, the machine cleans itself with hot water and steam. All you have to do is connect the hose back over here and then press OK for the cleaning to happen. The machine has 4 profiles, so if you are family 4, for example, each one can create a profile and customize drinks the way they like them. The Melitta T Smart also has a super silent grinder, and compared to other grinders in similar coffee machines, it's actually quite quiet. Let's now take a look at the app. So when you open the Melitta app, you have My Coffee and Recipes. When you click on My Coffee, this is where you see the default 4 one-touch buttons: espresso, cafe creme, cappuccino, latte macchiato, and milk froth. And you can configure how you'd like each one to be. So if you select cappuccino, you have 50 milliliters of coffee and 80 milliliters of milk froth. But you can configure this whichever way you want, adding coffee or milk froth. Also, with the coffee, you can configure a few things as well. So unfortunately, you cannot change the bean container automatically because this has a manual select. On the TS Smart, which is one step higher, you can automatically select which bean container, but you can select how many shots of coffee you want, 1, 2, or 3. The coffee strength, which effectively is deciding how many grams of coffee to use, and the aroma from standard to intense, and the brewing temperature from normal, low, or high. So if you go back, these are the default 4 one-touch settings, but also you have the different profiles. So you can customize your own drinks, and as I said, you can have up to 4 different profiles. Now if I go back to recipes, and this is where you see all the 18 different recipes. So for example, an Americano is 30 milliliters of coffee and 120 milliliters of water. And of course, you can play around and configure this whichever way you want. It's also nice that they visually tell you what each one is. So the Americano, as you can see, a dark black shot of espresso and then water. The long black has water and then 2 shots of espresso. A latte macchiato triple shot, as you can see, has 3 shots of espresso on top of milk. So these are the 18 recipes, but you also have freestyle. So if you go here, you can actually create your own recipe. So you can add a component. Let's start with coffee. We want 80 milliliters of coffee, and then we can add milk froth, let's say 105, and then you can add hot water, or if for whatever reason you want more coffee, another shot of coffee after the milk, you can do that. So you can create your own custom recipe. Going back to the main menu, you also have a section on maintenance, and this one is really nice. So all the different things that you can do in the machine, like cleaning the coffee system with step-by-step guide. So this is kind of a tablet that you get to clean the coffee system, and it shows you step-by-step how to do it. Cleaning the milk system as well. Cleaning the brewing unit, which I said once a week should be done. shows you how to remove the side panel, remove the brewing unit, and then rinse it under water. So there's a lot of step-by-step instructions with images, which are quite nice. And lastly, I'll end the video with a few B-roll shots of a few coffee beverages that I prepared so you can see how these turn out. As always, if you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. Until next time, cheers.